Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm excited. I have my friend Dorine Rivers, and for anybody who's listening, I will refer to her as River. She's asked that her friends call her that. So, River, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, and then we're going to spend the rest of the hour talking about Savantz AI. But let's start with who you are as a human.
Well, that's kind of a tough question because I'm a lot of different things to different people. But first and foremost, Jeff, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to talk to you because we have so many great things to discuss. And I'm hoping that the audience is excited about the things that we're going to talk about today. My background is literally I grew up on the river. My dad was one of the big pioneers of commercial river running. So I spent my summers on wild whitewater rafting rivers all over the United States. And then in the wintertime, we'd go down to Central or South America and run a river down there because it wasn't frozen like it was where we were living in the Western United States. And so I learned a lot of things about how to be independent and how to create things out of nothing, which is what my dad did when he started this business. And we had 7 kids, and if you didn't fend for yourself, no one would fend for you. So we learned how to create things and how to start businesses. And my first business was actually when I was 8 years old. And I've been an entrepreneur ever since then. And I don't know how else to do things, but to think of how to do it a better way. And how do I improve something or create something that doesn't exist that has benefit and value for other people. And at the end of that, I need to feel like someone else can use what I'm making to make their life better. So I've spent my career starting businesses, and I've had companies call me and ask me to start their business. And so I've lived in a lot of different states. I'll move, and I've come into a business as early as, to name it, and then set up systems and processes and product development and global expansions and logistics. And after a year and a half, I'll hand in the company and I'll say, don't kill the baby. And then I'm off to start another company. So it's been exciting. It's been fun. It's been educational. It's just as important to know what not to do as it is to know what to do. And we can talk about how it's better to learn from others than to make all those mistakes. Who has time for that?
It's too
But
short for that, isn't it?
it is, and maybe you could take 2 steps forward instead of 1 step forward and 2 steps backward by making mistakes. So that's kind of the background, and I get up every day so excited about walking into my office because to me, work is more fun than fun because I love what I do, and I'm a creator at heart. And so that's what writing books is about. That's what creating my new AI platform is about. All of those things are passions, and that makes it fun.
Love it. And we're going to talk about Savantz here because I'm just enthralled by it. But first, I want to talk about your daily motto that grit knows no limits. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we're going to turn around and talk about how you started Savantz.
Well, anyone who is listening and watching knows that when you start something, it takes a big part of you to get through the tough times. If you know why you're starting a business, then you have something to fall back on when the problems happen, which they inevitably will. And it's grit that gets you through that. So I'll give you an example. Last year I was on safari in Africa, and I kept flying over Mount Kilimanjaro. And I'm thinking two things. One, this has been on my bucket list since 1994, which 30 years. And two, you ain't getting any younger. So I come home and I decide it's time to hike Kilimanjaro. So I call an expedition that had been referred to me, and I book my trek up the Kilimanjaro. I choose Lamosha route. It's 7 days up, it's 2 days down. Then I call the airline and I buy my ticket. Then I go and I look at what hiking regime can I put in place to get myself ready. I have now committed myself to hike Kilimanjaro. And then you start with all your preparation. But the key is this: when you get to Tanzania and you're on the trail, once you take your first step, you have committed yourself to reach the summit. And it doesn't matter what happens in between the first step and the first day and reaching the summit on the 7th day. It doesn't matter what happens, because you're going to figure it out, because the goal is to reach the summit. Starting a business is the same way. You decide what you're doing, you do your preparation, and you get ready, and then you take that first step. That first step might be choosing the name and getting your LLC or your sub S or your partnership with the state, so that you have your legal entity and you're off and running. That could be your first step. But the goal is to have a successful business that's profitable. And you don't stop once you have that name and you're ready to go with everything else that goes with that, until you're profitable and you're making money and that's sustainable. It doesn't matter what happens in between. You're going to figure it out, because here's your goal, here's your summit for your business, and you're going to reach it. And that's where grit knows no limits comes in. There's no limit to whatever grit you need, because whatever you need, you will find.
Love that. Now let's pivot, because I think one of the things I love about you is you always seem to be doing something new, which, is being a serial entrepreneur. But what I do also love and respect is that you also have the system for it. And I think that's what you and I talked about on our last interview together. Now let's switch gears and let's talk about Savantz.ai and tell us a little bit about what it is, and then let's talk about why you started it, and we'll have some fun on the education side.
Well, I'll start by spelling it, which is Savant and then a Z.ai, Savantz.ai. And it's really taking all the things that people have already created. It's for business people who need to talk about their products and have talked about it on the website, but they want to create a video that actually shows what's going on. It's for authors who've written a book. Take for example, anyone who's listening that's an author knows that it takes a year or more to write a book. And when you go to print that, and especially if you're doing print on demand, if you do a hardback book, it's going to sell for about $35. You're going to make $1 from that sale. What if you could take that same information and turn it into micro modules of 4 or 5 minutes each and teach everything that's in your book, or create videos to illustrate what you've written? And now it's online and you're selling that for $1,000 per user. Do you want $1 or do you want $1,000? It is a huge no-brainer for authors. You might have articles, you might have blogs, you might have training you have to do for your business. Let's make it fun. Let's make it entertaining. And at the same time, your audience is learning faster and remembering more. And if they can remember more, they're going to use it and they're going to be better at what they're doing. And that's the end goal. How do we make it easier for people to improve in the areas that they want to improve? So the way this started for me was I launched a book last year called Brain to Bank, How to Get Your Idea Out of Your Head and Cash In. And basically people have super great ideas, but they don't know where to start to get that out of your head and turn it into business and start making money with it. And so the book has 17 chapters, and you go from 1 to 2 to 3, and you just go in order. And at the end of each chapter are accelerator actions. And what you do is you take what you've learned in that chapter, now you're going to apply it to the business that you're creating or the product or service that you want to have. And by the end of the book, you're ready to go. So I wanted to turn the book into an online course. And I have done it the hard way before, where, you already have your copy, which you spent a year or two writing. And now you're going to have to hire an animator and an editor and someone to do the music and the sound effects and put the whole thing together so that you can upload it into an online LMS.
Yeah.
It takes about 6 months to get it right. It takes, I don't know, something like between $10,000 and $20,000 to do it right. And it takes a whole bunch of your time to manage everybody. And when they get it wrong for the 15th time, you have to tell them how to redo it. And it's aggravating and it's time consuming and it's costly. I didn't want to do it that way. So I started putting together a system. My PhD is in creating organizational systems and processes. So for me, it's kind of a natural thing to create a system to do that. So I started putting this system together. And I actually hired an AI consultant to help me with the AI part of it, because AI is the buzzword of the century, right?
Yeah.
And how can AI help me do this faster? And so, well, I'm going to include this. I can include this. I can include. And I started putting together this system. And after 2 months, I realized that I am not creating an online course for Brain to Bank. I'm actually creating a platform that can benefit millions of people who want to do the same thing. And that is turn content into dazzling, exciting videos that we call edutainment. It's education and it's entertainment, and that's edutainment. People want edutainment. They do want to learn, but make it fun and entertain me, or I'm not going to watch what you're doing. I was creating that. So I take a little bit of a shift and start bringing on some developers to help me create a platform that makes it easy for people to take their content and have really fun, exciting videos be the end product.
I love that. And I think you and I will talk a little bit about the edutainment piece, because I think that is so critical. What I love about entrepreneurs, especially the serial entrepreneurs, you wake up, you have a pain, and you go, what, I'm going to build a business around this. And then, I love that innovation, because my little pet peeve with education, and, I deal a lot with authors and public speakers and people who do professional education for professional associations. Somewhere we accepted that learning and teaching should be boring. And for whatever reason, we're just a bunch of zombies. I look at my kids, they come home from school and I say, what'd you learn today? I don't know. It's like, shouldn't it be educational and entertaining? So you and I are going to have some fun on that. I love that you turned that into a business. So let's talk about the platform, and because you are who you are, I'm going to ask you some lessons you learned along the way, because I think that'll be fun. But what was your biggest discovery as you were building this wonderful platform to take existing content? And I'm just going to throw this out there to all those people who have shitty content. Please don't try to magnify your crappy content. But when you have people, that's my little pet peeve of AI. It just makes garbage loud. But you deal with the true, and I love the play on the word savant. You deal with the true expert and you help them amplify their voice. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely spot on. I think one of the biggest challenges is the fact that the younger learners, to begin with, they have a short expansion time limit here that you can get their attention and teach them. They have been brought up and trained and learned that things have to be fast and entertaining or they're not going to do it. I mean, just the requirements for something as short as what Instagram's doing or TikTok, I mean, by nature, they want it short, and they've learned that if it's not entertaining and you don't get to them in a very short period of time, they're swiping and they're off to something else. You're not going to change that. They've come up with that. It's in their DNA now that it needs to happen fast or I'm moving on because I'm not having fun and I'm not being entertained. So do you want to spend a lot of time trying to change something that cannot be changed? Or do you want to look at it and say, okay, how do we give them content that meets that criteria? Their phone is in their face. It's one of their appendages now. Try and talk to someone while they're watching something else, and if you quit talking, they don't know you quit talking. They're not listening anyway. So why don't we enter where they already are? Let's enter on the phone in short spurts, and let's go there. And so the videos that can be produced on Savantz are called micro modules, and they're short. They might be anywhere from 30 seconds to, they could be up to 3 or 4 minutes if you need to do that for a lesson, and that still works. But let's make it short, let's make it fun, and let's bring out the key points of what you need to teach to make sure they get the essence of the chapter that they were supposed to read that they never will. One of the things that I picked up on when I was teaching at Grand Canyon University, a couple of things. One, nobody owns a hardback book. They don't exist. They hardly know what they are. Two, if they have the book, the textbook, it's in digital form. It's on their computer. And while you're up reviewing the chapter and standing there talking to them, they're scrolling rapidly through trying to figure out where you are and what you're talking about because they didn't read the chapter. Now, when you look at the chapter, you were forced to read it because you have to teach it. But it was no fun and it was boring, and you don't blame them for not wanting to read it. How do we take that same content and teach them what that chapter should have taught them? Well, let's do micro modules and let's pick out the key points there, and then let's create something fun to watch. And at the end of the day, video is far more effective than reading and far more effective than if you just listen to it. So let's give them a medium that gives them the biggest chance to learn it and to retain it. And that's the mission of Savantz.
Love it. Now, I guarantee you've gone deeper into this than most people will ever think about in their lives. What are you finding is helping with that engagement? And it alarms me that YouTube has gone to YouTube Shorts and it's now like 25 seconds. TikTok is 20 seconds. Do people watch videos longer than 2 minutes anymore?
Well, I think they do. Number one, if they're passionate or they want to learn something, they will absolutely do it. Two, if they have to learn it to pass the course, they'll do it. Mm-hmm. But if they're going to spend an hour or an hour and a half reading a boring chapter with a highlighter in their hand, and then they have to go back and look at the highlighter parts to remember the test questions, what if you could take that same information and turn it into videos that taught the same thing, that were fun to watch and entertaining? You can make it a comic book style and make it fun. You can turn it into a fantasy style. You can have cinematic. You can have 3D. There are 8 different things that you can make it look like to have fun with it. The student doesn't know what you're going to do. They're excited just to see how you've transformed this information. Even more importantly is the fact that there are stories woven through the videos. People learn best through stories. It's entertaining, it's fun, but at the end of the day, they also remember what you talked about because it was a story. Storytelling elements are part of the visuals that you're going to get with Savantz. That means your ability to teach and their ability to retain and remember are going to be enhanced greatly.
Well, and I'll just add to that that both of my boys from a very early age, they wanted to be paleontologists. And they fell in love with paleontology through the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. And I love that they know how to spell all of these things because they were pulled into the story and then they got to know the dinosaurs. And I once watched my 11-year-old correct an adult because they got the wrong thing. We were at a museum and he's like, no, read the sign. It's this. But if you look at age, like we are still those primitive cave people sitting around the fire telling stories, are we not?
It's about stories. It's always been about the stories. I just watched the Academy Awards on Sunday, and anyone who didn't have a compelling story, it doesn't matter who the actors are. It doesn't matter about the cinematography or the set design. It matters about the story. It starts with story and it ends with story, and you have to get that part right.
Yep.
And I know that as a creator, I know that as a writer, and I know that as a producer. So I'm making sure that shows up in Savantz.
I love it. Now I'm going to share what people come to me and they say, this is what I know. I don't believe this, but I feel like you and I need to discuss this. I work with a lot of authors who first and foremost, they believe that writing should be a painful process. I personally think if it's painful, you're writing the wrong thing and you're doing it wrong. But by the time they get their book finished and published, they're so exhausted, they're just happy to get that dollar. I had one friend who crisscrossed the US and she was really excited when her book sold 5,000 copies. And I was like, oh, congratulations. How much did you make? And she said, well, I netted $5,000, but I had to split it with this person, this person, this person. So before my travel costs, I netted about $2,000. And I was like, so you lost money? And she said, no, I netted 2,000 before my travel costs. And I'm like, okay, we'll leave it there. But what I'm suspecting is people are going to come to us and say, okay, writing the book was hard. Creating the course is also hard. What would you say to somebody who has that kind of mindset?
I would say that it used to be hard. It's no longer difficult. As far as your friend goes, an average author, the majority of authors sell less than 1,000 books. So the fact that she was excited about 5,000 is actually warranted. As far as the painful thing goes, the pain is not in writing the first draft. The first draft is your easiest draft because it's already in your head and you're laying down the core story. The process and the difficulty comes in rewrites. The perfection comes in rewrites. How many rewrites and what is your level of perfection you're trying to get to? When I wrote Brain to Bank, I probably went through 30 drafts before I decided it was okay to print. It's not fun, but it's necessary. But what you have to remember is every time you do a redraft, it's getting better, and you should revel in the fact that you're making improvements. So when you have that and you finally get there, what if you actually could have more people be excited about your book because they're watching it in video form instead of reading it? Now, I will say this about reading. It's imperative to continue to read. Reading teaches you vocabulary. It teaches you writing styles. It gives you depth that video and movies and other formats cannot give you. So on the deep dive, especially if you're working on a master's or a PhD or something, you want that deep dive because that makes you the expert. But generally speaking, for 80 or 90% of what we're consuming, you're not looking for that element. So where can we get the key points and where can we learn the most in the shortest period of time? And that's with micro modules. And I'm not talking about 20 or 25-second ones that are on social media. I'm talking ones that have more depth to them and are actually there to teach you as well as entertain you.
I love that. And I think that's, everybody says doom and gloom, we're rotting our brains on video, but the reality is if you do the video right, and I think this is where I see it, to most people, the first step is, okay, I wrote the book. Now I have to learn how to become an educational course design consultant, and then I have to design the course. Something tells me, River, that you've built this into the AI. Is that fair?
Well, that's fair, because especially if you're taking a nonfiction book and it's meant to teach and educate, all of those things are going to show up in the video. And instead of being a talking head on a camera with a green screen that maybe most likely you're not good at, and even more likely if you're a writer and you're an introvert, you don't want to do, it allows you to skip all of that and make something fun instead of being some talking head sitting there just rambling on. And so spend your time taking things like actionable items that you put in your book and turning those into a PDF that they fill out online, and they watch the video and then they do the PDF. You can do your whole entire online course in a fraction of the time, impart information they'll actually get faster and remember to use better. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. Well, and for what it's worth, I've spent the last, I hate to do the math, but I'm going to say 12 years figuring out how to turn books into courses. And I hope most people aren't stubborn enough to waste 12 years of their life figuring this out. I guarantee I put my stuff through an AI model that was designed to do this. It's going to come out better and more polished. Is that a fair comment?
It is spot on. And this technology is not here to replace jobs or to take someone else's work and turn it into yours. Or, I mean, all those things are possible. But at the end of the day, it is here to be your best assistant. So look at it like that. It's here to save you time, help you improve, help you do things quicker, and to turn things around from what you have to what could be in a very short period of time.
And I'm just looking at, and by the way, I believe every business can benefit from some form of edutainment. Even boring household things like cleaning products. Do little videos showing people how to use them. Fun one: don't mix bleach and ammonia. Like, those could be useful videos. But I think a lot of people overcomplicate it, and I also don't like those thinly veiled pitch fests where people are like, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. Oh, by the way, here's one little tip. I'm just looking at the Savantz interface, and I have to say you've done an amazing job keeping it simple, and it looks really intuitive. So I'm probably warning, I'm going to do a video for my podcast showing how to take a piece of content, because I love right in the middle of my screen is import files. Start by uploading your book. I'm pretty sure most people can figure that one out. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, that's fair. And as far as the book goes, we're at the point which is early stage AI, where we can chunk that down. So import a chapter at a time. Don't import your whole book. Let's work with the chapter at a time. There'll be a time when it can bang out the whole thing. That's down the road. Nobody can do that yet. But for just piece it out and decide what you want it to look like and have fun with it. There's so many fun things you can do. And when you go to choose their voice of your narrator, there's 36 voices to choose from. Have fun. There's music. There's, I don't know, 500,000 songs to choose from. Have fun. Choose something that adds to the mood, that adds to the voice, that adds to the look that you've created. this is a creative thought process that's meant to be fun and
Yeah.
exciting and have a good time with it.
I will admit I've tried other platforms for different things, and I get a little too carried away with, I love trying new world accents, and it is amazing how different content comes across just by picking an accent. And my goal someday, just so you know, River, is that I will have James Earl Jones narrate one of my courses. I got to get going because he's in his 80s, but I just love the ability, because again, you mentioned, and this is actually one of the funny things I run into. A lot of people don't recognize that authors are generally introverts. Not all of them, but the kind of person who's got time to write a book, they go out and do the thing, and then they come home and they can sit in quiet for hours on end, and they create a book. They don't necessarily want to be out in front. It's like Hollywood with the Oscars. You've got the screenwriters. I couldn't pick one out of a lineup. If you told me somebody was famous, I wouldn't know it. Whereas the actors, you're not going to ask them to sit down and write the next scene.
Well,
So
that's all true. When I went to do the audiobook for Brain to Bank, I didn't do it. I didn't want to do it. I can't stand listening to myself. So I hired a professional to do it for me, and it turned out 20 times better. And I didn't have to be in front of the camera. And so that the platform allows you to do all of that. Now, if you want to do your own voice, you can do your own voice. And you'll send up a sample of what your voice is. It'll clone your voice reading the script that you just uploaded, and you can do it that way. You don't have to sit there and say every word. That's possible. If you love your voice and you want to do that, game on. For the other 99% of us, you can choose someone else.
love that. And by the way, there's a reason why we hear it differently than what other people hear, so we're inclined to not like it. But I do love the fact that you get the introverts out there. We don't want to be on stages. We don't want to be out in the spotlight. We just want to be quietly doing our thing, and changing the world in our quiet way. And again, love extroverts. We need them. But one of the things I find is there's a lot of courses out there on how to create courses. And the teeny tiny little detail is you have to go from being an introvert to an extrovert. Minor detail.
Game over, right? Yeah.
So what are some of the uses you're seeing people are getting the most excited about? Because I could talk to you all day about the author space, because just to me that's a no-brainer. But I'm feeling like there's also got to be some uses in university, or even in traditional kindergarten to grade 12. What's one space that you didn't quite anticipate, and all of a sudden you're seeing it popping up more and more in the Savantz world?
Well, I think transforming current online courses, which are usually talking heads, into something more exciting has come to the forefront. I had a university actually contact me and wanted to talk about revamping their entire online courses for all their campuses. And I can see how that is not only valuable, but actually needed at this point, having taught university. There are other applications that are coming to the forefront. Entrepreneurs who are putting together pitches about how excited they are about something they want to get produced, a service or a product. They're looking for investment capital. A video brings that to life and makes it exciting to look at. Businesses are looking at how boring training is. No one wants to do that. They're going to turn it on their Zoom or whatever they're using, and then they're going to walk in the other room and watch an episode of Netflix until it's over. They don't want to watch it. Well, what if it was fun to watch and they wanted to watch it? Wow, what would that be like? So that's a new thing. They're launching a new product and they need to dig buzz out on this new product. That works for businesses, that works for entrepreneurs. all of those are use cases. I'll be producing some demos on each one of those in the next 30 days. So you can see what it looks like to have a demo that fits that use case. You're going, oh, I see how that could be a cool thing for the business, for marketing, for launching, for excitement about what it is you're trying to have people see that you're doing that's new and fun.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I'm bored to death with the whole TikTok, YouTube world where it's all sizzle, no steak. And I feel like this is an exciting time because, and I want this to come across right, but helping the actual experts share their expertise rather than where a lot of the other platforms out there, a lot of the content is, I'm going to say average down. I'm going to be polite about it. I'm excited to see, you know, I feel like this is as big a revolution as masterclass.com was. When, you know, masterclass.com started bringing out experts and, you know, if you want to learn acting, I want to learn from Al Pacino, not Joe Franklin or, you know, whoever, somebody's not there. But I see this as a leap forward for all of those really smart people. I'm almost seeing this as a must have. If you look at decade ago, and I'm sure you've done the math here, a decade ago, university professors were judged based on how many books they published. And now imagine they can, instead of, you know, and I had a friend who published an 800-page thesis. I'm like, God, don't make me read that, please. But I bet in those 800 pages, there's a course that would be fascinating. So I see this as the great equalizer for really smart people to share their really smart lessons. Is that a good path to take?
I think you're spot on about it. And, you know, why are they being judged on books they published? Why aren't they being judged on books they published that people actually read? And so what if we take that and we say, why aren't they being judged on things that people learned from their books?
Yep. Well, and again, I would argue that that's probably what I still think the educational institutions are for, is to teach us things, not just, you know, give us a place to park ourselves for 8 hours and then the bell rings and we go off home. But I feel like this could be, you know, revolutionary. And again, not picking on elementary school teachers, but the vast majority of them, they're so busy wrangling the kids, they're herding the cats. They don't have time to do a brilliant lesson. But what if you could bring in a world-class expert like Jane Goodall to talk about what she does? And, you know, just imagine, like, I just think about this. I nerd out if we could have, you know, like, again, we can't time travel, we can't bring them back, but, you know, Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin, like, you know, if we could bring those stories to life, I think that would make education so much more interesting.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And creating videos that bring that back around in a very visual way are certainly a great way to begin that. There's AR, VR that is working on having immersion now, where you can actually sit down and talk to Socrates or talk to Edison, and you know, obviously that's going to involve the big goggles and all that stuff, and then that will become easier to do and less cumbersome as it progresses, and that's coming. And there'll be a way to include things like that as they become available in the videos that you're creating. You might start out with a video that talks about Edison and the theory of relativity, and that's going to be a different kind of video. Then you can do an immersive session, and then you come back and talk about what you just learned in the video. There's a way to include all of that. It's all coming. And it's AI is moving faster than a speeding bullet this time. And if you don't keep up with it, you get lost in the dust. So you figure out how to integrate things as they become available and stay up with it. And that allows you to create more value for whoever's using your product because you have the latest and greatest and you've implemented it because you saw it coming and you're ready for it.
Well, and I'm going to share something. I can't remember the source of this, but it disturbed me to no end. It looked at the adoption of innovation by industry, and the average for education, this was a few years ago, it was 50 years. Because what they realized was that the older teachers had to retire, the younger teachers had to innovate, and then they had to teach the third generation. And so by the time, I realized that, when my youngest son was in grade 5, he was learning the stuff that was relevant when I was in grade 5. And I was like, wow, that's disturbing. But
We have not come a long ways, baby.
yeah, but you look at AI. I mean, what's the half-life of innovation in AI? It's 5 seconds, 10 seconds? Like,
Agreed.
you
So,
know,
one of the challenging things of being in the field I've just chosen to enter is the speed at which innovation is occurring, and to keep up with it all is overwhelming. So it really helps to create a narrow niche that you're going to perform in. And to be the big fish in the little pond is a great place to be. I'm never going to be able to go up against, and I don't want to go up against OpenAI and what they're doing, and all these other gigantic platforms that are supported by billions of dollars backing them. That's not where I'm at. I am here talking about how can we get learners to learn faster and remember more, and that's education, and that's training, and that's this little space right here. And that's where I want to be, because I can make a difference there. And if I'm not going to make a difference, why am I doing it? So I'm playing in that little niche space, and it's overwhelming just what's happening there. That's all I can do is keep up with that.
well, and I feel like this is going to, the trickle that becomes a flood quickly. Because I mean, you think about most institutions, whether it's business, government, corporate, everybody's training is shrinking, budgets are at risk, it's harder to find teachers. um, and I can see this as a blended model, and I'm a big fan of the Khan Academy model, where you master a thing and then move on. um, I, as an introvert, love what you're doing. And by the way, I think extroverts can benefit deeply as well. But for me personally, this is exciting times because, to be blunt, looking at everything Savantz does, it's the stuff Jeff wakes up and goes, oh, the inner 2-year-old in me has a tantrum and goes, I don't want to record today. Can I just write?
Agreed. Agreed.
So, River, I adore what you're doing. How can people discover more about Savantz? And I know on your site you've got a free trial, and this is not a paid promotional thing. This is just two nerds talking about nerdy things. Um, is that the best way? Just jump in and do the trial and start making some content, or?
I would say that's the best place to start. Just go in, see how the system's set up, see how easy it is to upload text, pick a couple things that you'd like it to be, and push a button that says generate video. There are a lot of new things that are coming on every day, but start with the basics, with the trial, and then make a list of things that you have already, or really you can create from scratch if you want. But what have you already created that you can repurpose, turn into a video, and start making money on, and let other people have the enjoyment of what you spent so much time creating. The creation process is a wonderful, self-satisfying process in and of itself. But at the end of the day, if it's not a business and you're not profitable, it's really turned into a hobby. So for those people who are using it as their job, this is the perfect way to add another stream of revenue so that you can get it out into the world in a more exciting and fun way that they will actually participate in.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to be sharing this with a bunch of my friends. But River, thank you. Is there any parting thoughts you'd like to drop? You've given us a lot to think about, but any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
I think it's just this is new and jump into it and explore it and have fun. This is an AI adventure that we never knew was coming, but it's here. So let's avail ourselves of it.
Love it. Well, River, thank you for being on the show. Brilliant insights. And I highly encourage everybody to go check out savantz.ai. I'll put the link in so that you know how to spell it. Thank you, River.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.